All right, here we go. I'm going to do my best to get through this. I'm going to try and stay calm. I'm actually very, very angry. We're going to go through one of the most disgusting, vile pieces I've ever read. Nancy Armour. I'm sure you're not surprised at all by the name because she is a vile human being. For USA Today, I don't know how many people this had to get through to actually be published, but every single one of them, vile human beings who should be fired. Nancy Armour should be fired. I'm done with it. Y'all want to fire a guy over a word to Chelsea Gray because he's upset he lost money and who may never even get another job again? Don't come crying to me when he's on the street and he robs you. Uh, But yeah, we can all play that game. I want this spread far and wide because Nancy Moore should be shamed out of society. That's where we're at right now. That's where I'm at right now. And I think you might agree with me when we get into this. Caitlin Clark, here's the headline of her piece, by the way. Caitlin Clark's flopping isn't just annoying, it's becoming dangerous. Yes, folks, never been said about anyone else in sports before, ever. But when Caitlin Clark flops, it's dangerous. Yeah, let's get into this. Love the first sentence. Indiana Fever All Star Caitlin Clark and her enablers must take the rest of us for idiots. Uh, yes, yes, I do. In fact, I do believe you are an idiot. I do believe all old guard WNBA media, players, fans, all idiots. You all have very, very low IQs. You're all very emotional. You're all completely brainwashed. I don't need to even have a conversation with you because I can have both sides of the conversation. That's how predictable you are. Anyway, so let's get into that. And of course, she goes on to say, talking about the fouls that Clark argued, and that hey, but they Nancy can actually see the video, and she can see that you're lying about everything, Caitlin Clark. Now listen to this sentence. It says, Clark doesn't suddenly become invisible when she's involved in a physical play, so we can see what actually happened. Here's the sentence I want you to pay attention to, which is that Clark is flopping and her histrionics, while doing so, are putting other people in danger. Okay. And then Nancy Moore, being a very, very well known Caitlin Clark hater, completely unhinged lunatic. She belongs in an asylum, not writing for USA Today. Now, before you start howling and going on about the eyeballs Clark has brought to the WNBA and women's basketball, I am not a Clark hater. That's not gaslighting at all, is it? That's all they do is gaslighting. That, however, does not entitle her to a free pass, all the stuff about how popular she is. Twice in the last 2 weeks, Clark has raged over non calls and spun a narrative easily debunked by video of the actual game. First, she tried to sell a foul on Chelsea Gray in the Indiana Fever's July 12 game against the Las Vegas Aces. The two did have contact as Gray was driving to the basket, but it was minimal, no different than what's seen dozens of times in every WNBA game. Yet Clark collapsed to the ground as if she'd been hit in the stomach with a battering ram, then yelled at the refs demanding a foul. They reviewed it and saw what everyone else had. There was no foul, barely any contact. First of all, if y'all watch sports enough, oftentimes an incorrect call is not corrected with video replay. First of all, the wording doesn't allow to be. It has to be, clear and obvious. Like there's a lot of things that have to go into overturning a call, and it's not necessarily that you can see this. The other thing I would say is, Nancy, I ask you sincerely, and I'll like Bruce Lee it, okay? 1 inch. I'll move 1 inch. Let me jab you in the solar plexus with my elbow. And I want you to not react at all. My guess is you are going to collapse to the ground and your face is going to be pure panic because you won't be able to draw a breath because I hit you in the solar plexus. So, and I know other people, even Clark fans, got on her for that one. But as someone who's played basketball and done martial arts and understands what a little jab to the solar plexus can do, because I've done it to players in games, uh, yeah, I mean, just ridiculous. But hey, that is the best of the article. We're going to get into even more. Then, of course, she says what was it? Kai Jones, right? The Valkyrie one, the Kia Stokes, the Valkyrie one, Valkyrie's one where she drove to the basket. Obvious foul, didn't get the call. That's the one where on the other end when Aaliyah Boston got the call and Caitlin Clark, rightfully so, absolutely went nuts. I was gonna say bananas, and then I thought someone will make that racial, but then I thought Caitlin Clark's white. It gets very confusing. It's very confusing. But she went nuts. Um, no doubt about that. And then, Nancy says again, and yet once again, replay clearly shows if there was contact, it was minimal. There was a lot of contact. It was a blatant foul. It's absolutely ridiculous that an official would miss that. But because it wasn't called, Nancy says, let's call it what it is, flopping. And then she's so generous in letting you know she's hardly the only player that does it. Talks about, the soccer players, Lottie Divac, James Harden. But just as Clark's flops don't occur behind closed doors, they don't occur in a vacuum either. Rants and histrionics put opponents at risk. And then we're going to dive right into the next sentence being it seems there is a white nationalist element to Clark's fandom that is deeply, deeply problematic. We're hitting all the buzzwords, folks. Made even more so because the WNBA is made up of predominantly black women, many of them queer. I would argue some of them are not actually queer. Um, Even the ones that are women. When Clark claims fouls that don't exist, when she goes on profanity-laced tirades at referees, those racists see her as a white woman in need of saving and take matters into their own hands. None of this is true. This is just Nancy Moore being one to fan the flames of a racial divide to cause problems, to incite certain things that we're not going to say on here. It is Nancy doing it while wrapping herself in the cloak of victimhood, saying that that is what others are doing. I will say it for the 10 millionth time. Caitlin Clark fans love watching Caitlin Clark play basketball. It's entertaining. It's all they want to do. For the most part, they got to do it in college. Then she went to the WNBA, where you have a bunch of low IQ, entitled activists who suck at basketball. All of a sudden, don't just have their other club members watching the games, but have actual basketball fans watching the game. And you can see how well they have reacted to that. And then, of course, we get into the lies about Chelsea Gray. Chelsea Gray posted just one of the messages she got following the Fever game in which a man called her a racial slur, the same one blacks use all the time. After fans identified the man, he was fired by his employer, Hilton Grand Vacations. Enough is kind of enough, Gray said. These messages are not the first of its kind. There were other stuff too. It was just time I got fed up with it and I decided to share it. Wow. Now, that makes it sound like it's a Caitlin Clark fan or at least a Fever fan, but as we know, that is a lie. Chelsea Gray just posted it after the Fever game, but it was a Paige Beckers fan. Even more important, though, I'm not knocking Paige Beckers. I'm just, making it clear. Guy bets on games. And some of those fans that identified him, Caitlin Clark fans. Caitlin Clark fans, actually, some of them were very happy that they got that scalp. I'm not one because I just don't think that should happen to anyone. I think he's an idiot. I don't agree with anything that he did in terms of messaging Chelsea Gray. But I also don't think you ruin a man's life for a word. That tells me a lot about everyone else, really, more so than him. But as you can see, Nancy decides she is going to frame it as it was Indiana Fever fans. And then she goes into all of the typical, it shouldn't need reminding the country has an awful history of black people being harmed, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm not even going to go into giving you a history lesson, Nancy, because I think it would be embarrassing for you if we discuss history, because my guess is everything you know is wrong. That would be my guess. Yeah, I mean, then she brings up Emmett Till. Like, what are we doing? She doesn't like that Caitlin Clark is trying to bring attention to the calls that are not going her way, that she's not getting, that Nancy is willing to risk burning down the country to rant about Caitlin Clark and her fans. While it's incumbent on the WNBA, by the way, this is right after um, a sentence of Emmett Till and the L word. I'm not gonna use it because again, YouTube gets funky about certain words. While it's incumbent on the WNBA to do more to protect its players, they also should be an expectation on Clark to recognize the wider consequences of her actions. Caitlin Clark should not get upset about calls because we might get more Emmett Tills in the country. Might be one of the most repulsive things I've ever heard. Truly disgusting. Like I cannot overstate my vile disgust with a piece of garbage like Nancy Moore. She has no business whatsoever being in media, and USA Today is platforming this article. Wow. Wow. The officiating in the WNBA needs to be better, no question. And no one's expecting Clark to be a punching bag. Actually, you are. But here we go. But the WNBA is a physical league and always has been. Yeah, because they suck at basketball and they always have. That's why the physical league masks the lack of skills. Clark draws fouls not because players are jealous or out to get her, but because her 3-point shot and passing ability means defenders have to pick her up from the baseline. Don't, and she'll make you pay. Yeah, I think we've gone over plenty of times that yeah, it actually isn't just because of her skill, it's because they hate her. Again, I'm not a Clark hater. She's great for the league and for women's sports. She'll be even better when she cuts out the Oscar auditions because, of course, Caitlin Clark trying to bring attention to a foul that should be called puts lives in danger. White nationalism, black and queer, Emmett Till, blah, blah, woof, woof. Are you absolutely kidding me with this crap? Oh, and by the way, and hopefully I remember to put it up here for you somewhere. Uh, super brave firefighter Nancy Moore has protected her posts on X. These posts are protected. So see, Nancy can put out this vile crap that it can incite bad things directed toward Caitlin Clark and her fans, right? That's what Nancy's doing here. She's actually inciting possible bad things happening to Caitlin Clark fans out in public. Because if you don't think that someone walking down the street in the wrong place with a Caitlin Clark jersey on isn't vulnerable to something to happen to her, and it isn't because they read what Nancy Moore said, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you, but Nancy is absolutely the problem. And you know what? What I am really happy to see though is a lot of people, more and more people are getting fed up with this type of nonsense, right? Just some of the responses. That's disgusting, not surprising, but disgusting. Lies about CC, but also of her fans. How can people like this be employed? 100%. 100%, Bob. And Jay Jones, but then they have the effing balls to do this a few minutes later. Yeah, then they put out a promo on their X account about the Indiana Fever play their last game before the All-Star break against the Connecticut Sun, and here's how you can watch it. But yeah, man, absolutely wild. How weak of a journalist are you to write a piece like this to get clicks and not be able to take the heat? And they gave you there's a sorry, I'm having issues with my camera, which is why you're not seeing the split screen right now. And then they gave an image of Nancy in her protected posts. Nancy Moore should have been fired a long time ago for her blatant bigotry. Sorry, self-hating white with a savior complex. Ironically enough, Nancy is more of a bigot than those she is accusing. 100% true. I have found the most vile ists out there are the one who scream it at everybody else. And Nancy is one of those, without a doubt. Whoa, that was a horrible read. Nancy claims Cece is faking her hits. Twice in the last 2 weeks, Clark has raged over non-calls and spun a narrative, easily debunked by video of the actual game. Someone has spent too much time on X. This would never be written about any other player. How many times must they smear Fever fans before it's seen as purposeful? We are going on 3 years where every year it happens. That is why I'm done with this league. It's Caitlin first, Fever second. And if Caitlin leaves the Fever, it will switch to that team only. She locked her Twitter like the coward she is. Saw who wrote it and gave it a very, very wide berth. And given what you have posted, I'm glad I did. Yeah, and there's just a lot more of that. I skimmed this and was disgusted. If you say you don't hate a player in a column a couple times, you are lying and you really do hate her. Also, accusing Cece of lying about being hit hard in games is bleep. Cece literally switched her leg sleeve and had a pad on her contusion. Yeah, and it goes on and on like that, man. And wow, I'm pausing a lot. I know it's just because I am trying to like really kind of just for my own to get it out. I recorded another version of this. I might have set a record. I mean, I think it might have been not the same length, maybe 12, 15 minutes. I could have dropped some word certain words maybe like 1,000 times. But I'm gonna leave it there. I might have some more stuff to say about this, but I just wanted to put it out there. This is the crap Caitlin Clark fans are dealing with. This is the crap Caitlin is dealing with. Is obviously not only not slowing down, not stopping in her third year in the league, but it's ramping up. And get this out there. Like, comment, subscribe. Please share this. People need to see this crap. People need to get fed up and stop burying their heads in their sand and be like, just go along with their life and blah blah, not pay attention to anything because that's why we get stuff like this because we haven't been paying attention. We've allowed it to happen. Nancy is disgusting. She is truly a vile human being. She has no business writing for USA Today. She has no business being employed in media in any way, shape, or form. USA Today putting this out there says everything you need to know about them. I will never see anything they do and believe it unless I can verify it from other sources that I trust because clearly there's an agenda. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll talk to y'all later.